Hi Year 10s, today I'm going to make chicken and vegetable pies. Now this is another lunch thing, it's a really easy thing to do. It does take a bit of time, but it's not hard cooking. But this is just an interim in between as you're designing your hamburger task. So hamburgers will cook next week, but if you're up to it, the chicken pies are great. So I'm going to show you the ingredients. I've read through the recipe and I've chopped everything up to start with. But the first thing is a cheese sauce. Which is like it's a bechamel, which you put in lasagna. So I've got some butter. Now I'm tripling this recipe because I'll make enough pies, more than just two. Some flour, plain flour, some milk, some cheese, French mustard, or that's Dijon mustard, okay, and salt and pepper. I've also down here got my sweet potato that's diced, my broccoli that's cut into florets, some peas, frozen corn, sliced onion. I'm adding some parsley because I love parsley, and some chicken thigh, or you can use breast, I like thigh. And also I have got some sheets of pastry. Now I've got some puff pastry and some short crust. Now short crust goes on the bottom and the puff goes on the top. So puff pastry's got a lot of butter in it, so it puffs it right up nicely. Now I didn't show you before, but these are my little pie tins that I use. If you don't have those at home, you could just use a muffin tin and make mini pies. Okay, so I'm heating up my pot here, and I am going to just break up my butter and allow that to melt. Now I'm going to make what's called a roux, which is the flour and butter mixed together until it, and you brown that off, add milk, which then thickens, the roux thickens the milk. So we'll just heat this up and let that, melt. Okay, my butter's nearly melted. Just take that right to all melted point, and which it is, and then I'm going to add my flour. And I've got a whisk. You can use a wooden spoon at this stage, but I always use a whisk. Now it's going to thicken up really quickly. Now at this stage I also like to add for flavour my Dijon mustard. So a teaspoon of Dijon. Now I want to actually make this go to a just brown it off, otherwise you want to cook that flour off, the taste of the flour off. So you can see how it's thickened up there. I'm just going to brown that off. Now I've been cooking that for about a minute now, and I've got a whisk here, and I'm going to add my milk. Now I want to add that and whisk it up so I don't have lumps. You don't want lumps in your white sauce or your bechamel sauce. Now I just added a little bit to incorporate it, and now I've added the rest of it. Now this is liquidy now, but it will, as the milk warms, it will thicken up. Now, rule of thumb, I love black pepper, I don't really like white pepper, but rule of thumb, if you've got a white sauce, you use white pepper. There's a bit of pepper, and I'll get my salt, pinch of salt, and keep whisking it until it's nice and thick. Okay, my sauce is starting to thicken up, so you can see it's thickening up. You need to keep stirring it. The recipe also says to steam your sweet potatoes. So I've got my steamer on here, as you can see, just heating up. So this is now quite thick, okay? I'll take it off the heat and add my cheese and stir that through. Now the heat of the sauce will melt your cheese. Now that's a really nice thick bechamel sauce. Taste it for seasoning, and put it aside ready for your pies. Okay, whilst I wait for my bechamel to cool, I'm going to get my pastry ready. Now you've got to cut it out, but you also need to allow for the depth of your dish. So I'm going to give it a little bit of an area around it. Okay, and this is still a little bit frozen, but once it's defrosted, I'll push that into there nicely. Okay, so these dishes are a little bit larger than I'd like, but I don't want to waste any pastry, so that's out of one sheet. But what I've done, I've actually, if you can see, I've just pressed it together, but you've got to make sure that it's sealed. So I've just got pieces and I've joined them together, but you make sure that they're sealed. Now, once they're at this stage, we can press them into our tin. Now, be very gentle because you don't want to break your pastry. Now, we don't have to, butter the tins, because this pastry is very, very high in fat. So all pastry is. So you could make your own short crust pastry if you wanted. So I've got it like that, and that's one ready to go. Okay, I've got my sweet potato in here, and I'll just check to see how it's going. Just steaming there. We just want it to soften off a little bit. And yeah, that's good. And I'm going to chuck, for the last 5 minutes, chuck my broccoli in there too. Okay, so whilst we're doing that, that'll come off in a minute. I'm going to get my pan. I've got a fry pan here and just a little bit of olive oil. And I'm going to fry off my chicken and my onion, just till it's lightly brown. Okay, so in this bowl, I've got my corn, my peas, my broccoli and sweet potato. I'm going to put my chicken and onion and parsley in there too. See, there's a lot of ingredients here. We'll mix that through. And I have my cheese sauce. Put my cheese sauce through. Now we want to mix that through. And that's going to be a delicious pie filling. Now, you don't want too much sauce, but you want enough that it coats everything, and that you don't want a dry pie. Okay, so at this stage, you need to taste the seasoning. So I'll have a taste. Yeah, I reckon a little bit more salt and pepper, but nearly there. Okay, I've got my oven preheated on 190 because these will go into the oven in a minute. I just got an egg and a little bit of milk for an egg wash. So what I'm going to do is put some of my chicken mixture into my pie tins. Now you want a decent amount. Now, if you wanted to have a great, awesome treat, you could put a bit of cheese on top as well, but I think it's got enough cheese. Okay. And now I'm going to put after I've done this one, we're going to put the puff pastry on top. Now the puff pastry is the same size sheet, but I was able to cut that into quarters to fill it. Okay, so I've got all my pies here filled. So what I'm going to do now is just give a bit of egg wash around the edge of it, and we want to squeeze it together. Now, there's a whole lot of different ways. You can do a decorative top, you can do a lattice, but what I'm going to do here is just press it down with a fork around the edge with this one. And that will seal the pie. around the edge, because and the egg wash will act as a glue. Now what I'm going to do is just chop around and give the top a bit of a wash so we get a nice golden brown. Now what we need to do is put a couple of air holes in so that when it starts to cook inside, the steam doesn't burst the pastry. Okay, I've got one here with a lid on, and now I'm going to just do a rolling effect to give it a nice, this is a little bit tricky if you haven't done it before, give it a nice little edging. Sometimes there's a bit too much pastry, but never too much pastry. Okay, so see how it's got like a plaited effect around the outside. Now you still need to egg wash it and air holes. Okay, I'm going to show you another trick, a little bit of a decorative one. I haven't done this before, so I'm just going to give it a go. Okay, so I'm going to just secure it like that. I've cut strips of my pastry and going to do it like this. Now I think, I'm not too sure how this works. What I want to do is, this one might have to, okay, so that will go over. I'm sure there's got to be an easier way than doing it all by hand like this, but anyway, let's have a look. Okay, that took a bit of weaving in and out, but looks quite lovely. Wonder how it'll go. So I'm just, I put the egg wash around it, remember? So now I'm just sealing the edges. Now I don't have to worry about putting holes in it because it's got holes in it. Chop it off. And I have seen Miss Sillo do this before, but she made it look much easier than what I did. I don't know what she did, but okay. All right, so be creative when you're putting your pies together. Okay, now I've got by 3 times in that recipe, I've got 10 pies. So I did a little one here, if you want to have a look. I did a bit of a plait around the edge just with 3 strands of pastry. So just make sure they're all brushed nicely. And now they go into a preheated oven at 190 for 30 minutes. Now ensure that you have put holes in the top of each of them, otherwise you will have, not explosions, but they'll pop and burst. Okay, so the recipe said 35 minutes, but they weren't ready. So they've been in for about 50 minutes, and they're now beautifully ready. And we have, we've got these beautiful chicken pies. Okay, now they're a fun thing to do. They do take a long time, just preparing and you know, in and out of the oven, and lots of little bits and pieces. So have a go, yeah, and have fun. They will be absolutely delicious. Now they should come out of the containers pretty easy, as I said, because yes, so these are Teflon coated, and the pastry is quite, oh, that's split. The pastry is quite high in fat. So there you go. So excellent. Have fun making them. I did.